Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Hey, welcome to this episode of the Note Closure Show. As always, Scott Carson, jacked up to be with you today, and we've got a very special guest on here. And you guys know that I like to attend different events across the country, especially those that really dive into the finance and the marketing spot. And of course, it's this time of year again. I'm headed out to FinCon, and this year it's taking place in Portland, Oregon. And we always have a great series of guests on of interesting people that we meet at FinCon. And we're really excited to kick that series off with Linda Grizely here joining us here. And Linda is attending FinCon for the first time, but she's been a creator. She is a phenomenal expert. All right. She is in personal finance educator, a motivational speaker, and the creator of the MeMoney method, which when I heard that, we got to have her on just based on that. Okay. She's a mindset first approach that helps women stop putting themselves in their own budget last. She's a former teen mom who went back to college at 48 and built a multi six-figure career in financial services and now helps women gain clarity, confidence, and control with their money without lectures or judgment. And I love that because half our audience is women. And so, Linda, we're honored to have you on here today. How's it going today?
It's going great today. Thank you so much for having me, Scott.
Yeah, no problem. Glad. And we were just visiting, and we visited before we got on the call here, and before we got on Zoom and stuff like that. And that's definitely a bit of a change having to go back to school. My mom went back to school after 20 years when I was like a sophomore in a high school to get her nursing degree. So I know that's not easy to go back. Can you talk a little about that and kind of what drove you to do that?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So it's a long story, but I'll make it a medium story.
Okay, no problem. We got plenty of time here.
So it started because, I got divorced after being married over half my life. So I was 22 when I got married. I was married for 23 years. I got divorced at 45. And so I needed to figure out what was next for me in life. So a big step, ready to take on a new life. And I got this job that I thought was like my dream job, right? And it was doing something that I loved. And I actually loved the job, but it was this horrible environment. And it was a place where people were taking sides and turning against people. And I ended up being at the center of it. And I went to work every day with a pit in my stomach.
Oh man.
So here I am thinking I've landed this great job. I'm starting this new life. And I've found myself in this situation that was just awful. And so I started trying to look for another job, but I was trying to do it under the radar. So I wasn't able to really talk to people or network. And I kept, this is back in like 2016. So I kept, or maybe even 2015. So I kept checkbox. Do you have a bachelor's degree? No, I can't check the box, right? I can't say yes. So without being able to network and talk to people, because I didn't want anyone to know I was looking, because there was already this volatility at my current job, I was like, I'll just be out the door. It was really hard to find a place to get even an interview. And then a friend of mine who knew me well said, hey, I have a job opening and it'd be working for me. And it's at a hospital, but it's doing some networking type stuff. It's not like a medical job. And I think you'd be really good at it. Would you be interested? I said, absolutely, 100%. That sounds great. So he got me a connection with this recruiter, and the recruiter said, you don't have any experience in the health field and you don't have a bachelor's degree. I can't even get you in for an interview. So here's the person that would be my boss saying this. And that's when I was like, all right, something big needs to happen, because I can't keep living in this job that I'm in. Not only that, I wasn't even making enough money to survive. I was going backwards. And something big needs to happen. So I took a really bold step and quit my job. First, though, before I quit my job, I took out a home equity loan before I quit the job. Then I cashed in a small retirement fund. And none of that is probably great financial advice coming from someone who ended up being a financial planner, but I wasn't a financial planner at the time. So I was like, I need to do something, and something big needs to happen. And that was my waking up call to say, like, you need to get your bachelor's degree. You need to, show some proof that you are worthy of these jobs. So I did that. And I was like, all right, because of my financial situation, I said, I got to get this done in a year. So the very first semester of school, I took 11 classes at 4 different schools. So I took
Wow.
a full boat. Yeah.
Hang on a second. 11 classes at four different schools. I mean,
Yes.
so that's what, 30 some odd hours
I
of
don't even know
classes?
how many. I don't even know how many it was. It was
Wow.
insane though.
So what were the
And
four of the universities or four schools that you were doing them at?
yeah, so first I had a certificate in nonprofit management that I had already started that was related to the job that I was leaving. And I wanted to finish that. I didn't want to not finish it. So I was taking that through UIC, which is the University of Illinois at Chicago. And then the bachelor's program I was in was through Franklin University, which is out of Columbus, Ohio, and I live in Illinois, but it was online. And they had an agreement with my local community college so that you were sure that these specific classes you took would transfer over. So there's three, right? And the fourth one was just a separate school where I took another class that I knew I could get credit for for the university.
Right.
So that's the four schools. So there was only one, there was a full boat at the main college. There was finishing up the certificate at the other college. Then there was this one off class, which was actually a math class because I was behind on math classes. So in order to graduate by the end of the year, I had all these like take this one first and then that one, like prerequisites. So that's where the math class came in. And then just extra classes like gen eds from the community college that would transfer in. So yeah, 11 classes, 4 different schools.
Wow. Wow. You were wow. Most people, okay, wouldn't do that. Obviously, but that was what that makes you rare air on it. And I want to come back to the point too. And most people, I won't say burn the boats. I won't say that's burning the ships, taking out cashing the 401k and doing the home equity. A lot of it is, I think, a lot of people come from the mindset, well, I've got to save what little money I have. And you're like, well, I can save here and end up in the same boat worse off, or I can take what I've got and actually make something of myself in the next 12 months. Do you run into kind of hurdles like that with your clients who are like so scared that they don't take action?
Yeah, it's I'm drawing a total blank at the moment. What is I'm gonna remember what this is called. I just actually did a video on this. And I'm
Paralysis
just
analysis,
trying,
maybe
I
over.
don't know. It's called the oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm forgetting it. Um okay, anyway, it's the whole thing where it's like you have to realize what your situation is, like the reality of your situation, but not just be optimistic about it. Be optimistic, but at the same time take action, right? So it is the God, I'm going to remember it anyway. So the idea is that I knew that I was going backwards financially, and in order to go forward financially, I had to make a bold move. So this was home equity loan, cashing in a small retirement fund. This was an investment in my future because in reality, if I looked at the track I was on, I was headed there anyway. And eventually I was going to start spending stuff down. And if I didn't figure out a way to start, to jumpstart and be able to start saving and be able to start doing that, right, it was just going to keep going the other way. So it was like I had to go backwards to go forward. But yeah, so that was the idea behind it, and it was an investment in myself, and I knew it, and I knew that I was ready to take big bold steps to change my life.
And I love that you said big bold steps. And just like you, I've talked with people all the time, especially people that hate their job. They want to be more of an investor. They want to dive in full time. And they're so scared to make a jump. And I'm not telling anybody to go out. I never tell people go out and quit your job overnight.
No.
That's not a good thing. Usually let's build a plan to it. But a lot of people get so wrapped up, oh, I've got this security or I've got this job that's got benefits. I don't trust myself to go out and have success, or is this going to work for me? I got to prove concept that something's going to work. Well, the concept's proven. You just got to have a little belief in yourself, right? And you obviously had belief in yourself.
Yeah, time and time again. I've recreated myself more times than I care to admit. But yeah, but no, it is. And it's always stepping towards something. So it's not like, I feel like sometimes to outside people might be like, oh, she left that again. What's she doing now?
Right.
But every time it's growth. And every time to me, it's leveling me up. And they don't necessarily see that. They don't know what's going on internally and what's really going on like in my career and where I'm headed. So they're just like, oh, what are you doing now? but it's always something bigger and better. And I like where I'm at now, I feel more aligned with anything that I've done before. So I really feel like all the things I've done have led me here, and it's a really great place to be.
Mm-hmm. I would leveling up or climbing that virtual ladder that we're trying to get where we want to be is one of the most important things. And so many people get bogged down into believing that they're only worthy kind of what they've got right now, and to do making a change scares them in a lot of cases into that not overanalyze paralysis, but that fear factor, I guess you could say, of the unknown, huh?
Yeah. And I remembered the name of the thing I was trying to remember.
What is it?
It's the Stockdale Paradox.
Okay, all right.
So if you look up Stockdale Paradox, you'll see. And I think that it's in that book, Good to Great, I think, is where it's mentioned. And it's about a person who was in the service, who was just like a prisoner of war, who was saying that you have to not only have optimism, but you also have to know the reality of your situation and take actions.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. What are some of the things that you like to work with your clients to help them come up with ideas, or if they're stuck in that aspect of life, how to get unstuck?
Yeah. So I do financial coaching, but personal growth coaching at the same time. Because to me, you can't teach somebody about finance and not have the personality of the person and the mindset of the person in there. And that's the piece that was missing to when I was doing financial planning. That's the piece that was missing, is talking to the person about their own money personality and their own way that they interact with money, because they need to understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. And they also need to understand that the advisor person, which I'm not acting as an advisor anymore, but they need to understand why somebody's doing what they're doing instead of just them telling them to do something and then it doesn't happen, because you can't put a square peg in a round hole, right? So the way that I help people is by understanding what their relationship is with money and helping them also understand at the same time where they want to go, how they can get there, whether it be in money or with life or both, because really they're one and the same. I say that money is like our breath because it's with us every moment of every day, even when we're sleeping. So taking those two things and saying, what are your goals? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do financially? What do you want to do personally? How do we make that all happen? And I don't actually do planning, I do coaching, but I teach people how to do their own financial plan. It's education.
Well, it's one of the. I love what you say. You've got to grow into that mindset, because I can remember one of my mentors telling me, like, "Hey, listen, Scott, if you want to go from making 50K a year to making 100K a year, you're going to be doing different things. If you want to go from making 100K to $1 million a year, you've got to completely rewire your brain to be doing different things. That $100,000 brain isn't going to get you to seven figures. You've got to train yourself, get coaching and stuff like that to level up yourself so that you're there more than a flash in the pan, right?"
Exactly. There is a book that I wrote a chapter in, and it's called Lessons from Thought Leaders. But my quote, my favorite quote from my chapter is, even an overachiever can only achieve to the level of their mindset. Because that was me. I was an overachiever and I was doing everything, but my mind didn't know where I could go.
I love that. I love that. I love that. We're going to have to pull that out as a snippet. Where do you see the most amount of like mind blocks and the same questions that you probably answer over and over again from your clients? What do you see as like the biggest hurdles that they're facing these days?
The biggest hurdles are the stories that they're telling themselves, that are a lot of times based on stories that other people told them, right? So, and this started my interest in this started actually back when I was doing financial planning and having clients come in and talk to me, and I'd be like, what? Where are they coming up with these crazy ideas? And how can they not, why are they in their own way? And this is what really intrigued me, because, I'd have people come in who would say, well, my dad always told me this. I'll be like, your dad lived in a completely different time period. He does not have the same financial situation as you. You're living, 30 years or later, and you have a different job, you have different kids, you have different lifestyle. Technology is different. Think about all the things that have changed. Why do you feel like that advice is the same advice that you should take today? Right? If someone told you to go out in your backyard and pump water, you'd look at them like they were crazy. So why do you think that is the way you should do something today? So there's that. And then there's, my neighbor did this or my brother did this, right? So I had this one specific client who was living beyond his means, and he knew he was living beyond his means. And he's like, how am I ever going to retire? And I'm like, going through his plan, and I'm saying, it's going to be this long or that long. And he's like, well, I want to invest in this. My brother is investing in this. And his brother, turns out, had like way more money than this particular client did. So the investment that this brother was in was not appropriate for my client because my client couldn't afford to put that much at risk. But his brother, who had a lot more money, could afford to put some money at risk. But because my client was not living within his means and was not saving enough and was not set up to retire when he wanted to, it was absolutely not appropriate. So me telling him that was not what he wanted to hear. And this is where you're like, how can I help you get out of your own way? How can I help you see that if this is who you want to be and where you want to go, then the financial realm is not where you need to be focusing. You need to be focusing on your career and your mindset and your goals there to get leveled up to the point where your brother is so that you can invest in something like this. Like me working on your finances is not going to make the difference.
Right.
You got to make changes in your own life. That's what's going to make the difference. Whether you downsize your home or you upscale your career, right? Something's got to happen, but it's not going to happen over here. I can only do so much.
There's only so many times we can look at the numbers and reshuffle things there for you to get where you want to go. The numbers just don't add up to get from A to B to C, right?
Right. So now I'm really hoping to empower people to teach them about finance, and at the same time help them see all these internal obstacles that they have, right? And I think you mentioned, so at the very basic of it, you mentioned at the beginning, my MeMoney method, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the MeMoney method takes that idea down to its very core, which is that you can't live a life you love on a budget you hate. If you look at your budget, which in financial planning, they call it cash flow. We call it cash flow, money coming in, money going out, whatever you want to call it. It's still a budget. You're looking at what's coming in, what's going out. And you're listing all of the things like this is housing, food, clothing, utilities, all the things you have to have, what you got to spend on your kids, whatever it is. But where is the line on, you might save for a vacation or car, which might be you, but where's the line item for you yourself? Where do you fit in? And that's the hard part. How do I treat myself? How do I buy myself up some clothes? How do I take myself out for an evening out? How do I go out with a girlfriend? How do I save up for a girl's trip, something that's just for me that doesn't include my husband? How do I do that without feeling guilty? Whether I'm feeling guilty myself or I'm feeling guilty because I answered to my husband or whatever that is, how do I do that? And that's where MeMoney comes in, because you put yourself as a line item. And even if you don't have a budget, you can just start with just that piece. It can be that simple. And that way it allows you to put intention around how you're spending money on yourself, to better understand your money personality, and to just really get in touch with what you value. And so there's where that's just like the basic thing. And it has helped so many people.
How hard is it to build a vision for that? I know that you focus on vision building and stuff like that. And if folks have been so busy, like, oh, I can't make time for me, I don't have time for me, or I feel guilty for spending money on myself, how do you help create that vision where it's okay for them to do that, or you are worthy? I feel a little bit like Stuart Smalley. I'm good enough. I'm smart enough, and doggone it, I deserve some time, right?
Exactly. And that was me. So let me tell you how it started. So it started because I put my husband on a budget. So this, before I ever called it MeMoney, before I ever implemented it with any client or anything, I just told my husband, I'm putting you on a budget, because he didn't realize how much money he was spending. So he would go fishing, he would go golfing, he would go on guys trips, he would do, and the whole time, like, I don't care that he's going and doing this stuff. A little bit of me felt jealous, and I'll get to that more in a minute, but really I didn't care. But it was like, I do the finances. We're a blended marriage. We got married older. So I would do the finances, but he didn't really have any idea what he was spending. And I'd say, and he'd be like, oh, it was just a guy's trip. Like, we got a cabin, we split the cabin. It was not a big deal. I'm like, you paid for gas, you paid for a boat, you paid for a trailer, you paid for licensing, you paid for, this, you paid for I'd be like, you got to add it all up. It's not just the one thing.
Right.
You're not putting out when you book a vacation, like a typical vacation, you're putting out a big chunk of change right at one time to buy the vacation. But because his was scattered about over all these things, he wasn't realizing what it was. Not a big deal. So I put him on a budget because I just wanted him to understand what he was spending. I said, this is what you get every paycheck. You're going to get this much. You're going to put it into a separate bank account. And then if you want to go on those trips, you have to have the money saved up to go on those trips. Basic budgeting, live within your means, within your little MeMoney bucket, which I didn't call it MeMoney then, but live within that. And he's like, okay, well, great. You're giving me allowance. Haha. And he's like, are you going to put yourself on the same budget? Give yourself the same allowance. And I said, yeah, I will. I'll do that. And I said, same amount. We're under the same roof, same household, same lifestyle. It doesn't matter who makes more money because we're living one life together. That's part of a partnership in a marriage. So same amount. So he's got his money. I've got my money. We've got separate bank accounts. We move it into each time. I've also got a savings account. I'm moving money into a savings account. He moves some money into savings and back out of savings. We'll talk more about money personalities later. But okay, so we've got our monies, and I asked him like after about a month or so, how's it going? Because I was really worried that he'd be like, I feel restricted. You're controlling me, And I was like really worried about that because that wasn't my intention. Honestly, my whole intention was just him to understand better what he was spending. And he said, it's going fine. I'm like, what does fine mean? Typical guy answer, right? What does fine mean? He's like, well, I'm just making better choices. And I was like, oh, tell me more. Tell me more about the better choices. So he says like, well, there was this golf shirt that I wanted. And he's got a closet full of golf shirts. He does not need another golf shirt. He's like, there's a golf shirt that I wanted and I was going to buy it. But then I thought, well, if I buy this shirt now, well, I really would rather just save that money and put it toward a golf trip later. And I was like, perfect. It's working even better than I thought it would, right? This is the whole point. This is working so well. So yeah, so he was just making better choices. And he was like, it's like, I'm deciding whether it's worthy of me spending my money on or not. And he's like, would I have bought that before? Yes, I would have bought it. I totally would have bought it. Am I saving money? Maybe I'm not saving money because maybe I will just spend more on the golf trip, but I'm just making better choices and I feel really good about it. I was like, awesome. So on the other hand, takes me more than a month to figure something out. So I am going about my day and I've got my money set aside and I'm moving it into savings and whatever. And I have these little packets of this face cream that I got. I went on a wine walk with some friends and we were going through these little shops and it was like this place that did facials. And I'm sorry, this is such a long story, but hey.
This is great. This is
anyway.
Trust me, our audience is not going to get tired. They like stuff like this. Is good.
Okay, so I got these little packets of face cream and I'm using them sparingly. And I'm like, and I'm like, my face feels amazing when I use these. Like, and I'm thinking like this, I wish I could afford this. And I'm like, wait a minute. I can afford this. I have the money and it's already set aside for me. I can buy this. Like it's already there. I don't have to answer to myself and guilt myself, right? So I bought it. I bought the whole day, the night, the whatever, and it's amazing and I love it. And I went to the dermatologist just the other day and this young dermatologist person is like, oh, your skin is great. I'm like, thank you. And I'm like, and by the way, there's a filter on my Zoom right now. So if it does not look this good, but it still looks good for my age, right?
You look great. You look great. You look great.
But anyway, the idea of it was like, I think back and I remember in my 20s putting a face serum on my wish list for Christmas and birthday. And my mother-in-law at the time buying it for me and saying like, I feel weird buying this for you because it seems like I'm like buying you something like for your aging skin and you're like 20 something and like, it just doesn't. And I'm like, but I would never spend that money on myself. It's something that I want and I would never do that. So it took me till, double nickels to figure out how to spend money on myself. It took me that long, but I finally figured it out through this method. And then what happened was not only that, so my husband had better money habits, I had better money habits, but more importantly, for me, it leveled out the playing field because I felt like he was doing all these things and I wasn't. And this is where I said before, I'll talk about like the jealousy a little bit. Like he was doing all these things and I wasn't. He wasn't telling me that I couldn't. I was telling me that I couldn't. But once I leveled out the playing field and I knew that we each had the same amount of money to spend, regardless of whatever, I had relief. Like, so relationship wise, it helped us too. So then I started telling other people about it. And the result was that I found that it worked with, I'm sure it's not going to work with every single person, but all these different money personalities, because it puts intention around what you're spending and helps you decide on your values, it's huge. And you don't have to put a whole budget together. The course that I have tells you how to just choose like the initial amount, and you can stop there if you want and make it that simple. But if you want to go into the whole budget and figure out what the real amount is, you can do that too. That doesn't mean you need to budget everything in your life. It just means you'll get a very more specific number for your MeMoney number, because everybody is going to be uniquely different in their number.
Sure, no, that makes a lot of sense. I love it because I can see it right now because my spouse and I, we always have, so, okay, if we're going to spend anything more than like $100 or $200, let's just bounce it off of each other. You know what I mean? Got plenty of money, but it's like, what if we're going to spend more than this? Unless it's something that's just yet no brainer. If it's something to be individual, let's just bounce it off each other. Purse, I don't care about. Makeup, I don't care about. Get a shirt here. Stuff you always just, you got way too many shirts. Like, yeah, I probably do. So I don't need to buy another shirt or anything. But it's that good kind of releasing maybe that animosity. Some people feels like, oh, you're trying to control me. No, we're just trying to make better money decisions, like you say, and giving you some of that leeway to make better choices. I love that. That's a good thing versus like, oh, if and I Jeff, oh, I'm fine. We're fine. Well, maybe you're not fine, guy. Come on, what's going on?
Yeah, yeah. So it's all about that. And like, so you say you go to each other, and that's fine, but maybe you want to set aside an amount. So like, you don't have to go to each other anymore because it's already set aside. And here's the other thing about it. So me being the saver personality that I am, like I could justify buying 10 different things for $10 over a period of time, but I might not have ever justified buying one thing for $100, right? So $10 on Amazon, $10 here, $10 there, but $100, nope, can't afford that. But now that I know that I might not buy those 10 things for $10, I might wait and buy something for $100 that I really want. There's a well-known financial personality out there who has a show that says like, can I afford it, right? And there's one specific episode that I think about where this person calls in and they want to buy this pair of shoes that are like $700 designer shoes. And she said, my husband, I've got these two events coming up. I can wear them more than once. I'll wear them to all these things. My husband says I can't. Can I? And the person who's a financial coach person says, what do you have in savings? What do you have for retirement? What do you have coming in? And asks for all these numbers and says, no, you can't afford it. You can't buy the shoes. And I'm sitting back there thinking, yeah, you can buy the shoes. Heck yes, go buy the shoes. Here's the way you do it. You set aside your MeMoney. And if that's what you really want, you want that $700 pair of shoes, you save up your $700 and you buy that pair of shoes. Maybe once you get there and you know that it's your money and you only have so much, maybe you want to buy, 7 pairs of $100 shoes. Maybe you decide that it's not worth the one pair of $700 shoes. When it's your money and you know that you're the only one you're answering to, maybe you're going to make a different decision, or maybe you're not. But the only person you have to answer to is yourself then, because you've already made that agreement that you can spend that money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. I think my better half would get actually has gotten better leverage off of buying $100 pair of shoes versus the one pair of Louboutins. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's the same thing, right?
Yep.
So you're
Yep.
going to authorize, yes, I'm sorry, not say authorize. You're going to you're going to say yes. I shouldn't say authorize, but you're going to say
Yep.
yes so many times, but you're going to say no to that. But if it's already set aside and that's something that someone really wants, then that's what they can get. I'm probably aging myself here, but if I think back to like my childhood, there was something called layaway, and people
Mhm.
didn't buy things that they couldn't afford. I mean, they did, some people did, but you went in and you actually went to the store and you picked out an item that you wanted, and you set it aside on layaway, and then you came in every month and you put your, however much it was down until you finally had it paid off, and then you could have it. Then you could have the item. And now we're backwards in our society where it's like you got the item and you haven't even paid for it yet. You know, it's so completely different. And this is another thing where I'm talking about, like, even in my lifetime, the amount of things that have changed. Why would you take my advice that I gave you, 40 years ago? Why would you take that same advice in today's world? Right.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you next. Do you like the buy now, pay later things that are happening out there? Oh, 4 easy payments of 19.99. You know what I mean?
There is some strategy behind that. I'm not going to say an absolute yes or no. There can be strategy. I recently bought a car at 0% financing. you know um I'm leveraging my money, right? I can have money in a savings account, a high yield savings account that's completely liquid, that's earning probably just under 4% now, but was earning higher amount at the time that I bought the car. But why not take 0% financing, as long as I'm going to be responsible with that and pay it off, right? There are other times when somebody really needs something, like an appliance in their home goes out. I mean, you don't want to live without a refrigerator. If you can't afford it, you might have to finance that, right? So, I mean, just thinking about like things realistically, what are your needs as opposed to wants, and what does it make sense to finance and what does it not make sense to finance?
Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, there's things that make sense and those that don't make sense. But I like to ask you, there was an article that came out recently about how many Americans have given up on the idea of like retirement. It's like 30-40% of people just have given up on it. Which,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of that's got to do with mindset. Because I always tell people like, oh, yeah, I got to have 4 million or 5 million in the bank. It seems like an impossible number. Well, there's ways to re-engineer those numbers to make it sense where we can create cash flow for you that's thrown off like you had $4 million. But when you, and I'm sure you've probably come across people who have at the point where they're just about to give up. What's your kind of thoughts on that, and how do you approach those folks?
And you know what? That's actually kind of the market that I serve a little bit, not totally, but part of it. And it's mostly my generation, Generation X, right? Because we have the boomers that were before us, and they worked long and hard, and a lot of them worked at the same job for a long time. They maybe saved better. They lived a lifestyle different than us. I think Generation X, we lived a more active lifestyle. We changed jobs more, and we we spent a lot on our kids, and we're spending money on our parents.
Yeah.
So we are in the sandwich generation, and I'm not saying that other people didn't. I'm just saying it's different for us. And I think that we're the first generation to really have that huge expense on all ends. So we are behind. And generally speaking, we are behind. Now, millennials and Gen Z, a lot of them are not all of them, but a lot of them have locked into this FIRE movement, right?
Yeah.
Fixed income, retire early, and they are focused on living within their means, maybe living below their means so that they can save more. And so I think, and I don't want to tie it specifically to generations because it ebbs and flows throughout ages and generations, but just as a generalization, that's kind of where it is. That's where I see it at. And that doesn't mean that there's not people of the different ages that fall into different groups, right? A lot of it has to do with just the education that we've had around finance and what was available to us. So luckily, the younger generations are getting more and more financial education and talk, right? Nobody talked about money when I was growing up. Nobody did. Not in my world. My parents lived paycheck to paycheck, and that's all I knew. I didn't know any better.
Yeah,
So
I totally agree that the education side of finance and money is definitely increased, and the fire movement is great, and the use of social media these days might be one of the few positive things about it for younger folks learning different money lessons and what they can do and shouldn't do. I think also too a lot of folks, being in the housing side, the mortgage side of things, people are kind of really upset about, well, I don't want to go buy a house, I can't afford a house, we're going to do something different than what mom and dad did or what grandma and grandpa did, because you're right, the times have changed and it's not as easy to buy a house these days as it used to be.
it is not. It is very hard. It's very hard for younger people to get out on their own as everything is so expensive. It's ridiculous. But the idea of providing financial education. So my peers, like my friends that are my age, a lot of them women, have been divorced recently, or within the last 10 years or so. And they say to me, like, I should know better, I should have more, I should understand this better. And they're afraid to take a step to go to a financial advisor. They're afraid that they're going to get taken advantage of. They're afraid of all the things that they don't know. And so having financial education available to them is important to me because I want to make a big impact. I want the people that want to know, right? You got to want to know. You have to want to learn about this. It's a safe place for them to go before they go talk to a financial advisor because there are so many different types of financial advisors. And one of my podcast episodes is about how financial advisors get paid.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very eye-opening if you listen to that or just Google it. Like there's a lot of different ways they get paid. And the general public thinks that one financial advisor is the same as another, and they are completely different. There's like a vast array of models.
Big difference. Definitely big difference. As an ex-financial advisor myself, I was like on my own independent, and then I also worked for a big bank, and I was like, we're moving to something else here. I was always amazed at the lack of transparency in some cases, how they're getting paid, and how a lot of folks direct people to different products based on a commission basis. And that's not really the right, well, it's not at all the right way you should be advising clients based on what commissions you're making, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So providing education is a safe way for people to learn about things before they jump head on into something that maybe isn't going to serve them the way it should.
Mhm. Do you have a mentor or somebody you've looked up to over time that you're like, I like what they're doing, or I like where they're headed and stuff like that? You kind of model yourself after or anything? Do you have a hero?
I don't have a hero. At a point in my life, I started reading books,
Yeah.
the traditional personal growth books, Think and Go Rich and The Tipping Point, and all those classics, the John Maxwell books, like, and that was really who my mentors were books. Um, but I do have like an idea of who I want to be.
What's that vision look like, Linda?
So I really want to be someone who is empowering and inspiring other people that meets them where they are. And I've I've been a fan of Mel Robbins for quite a long time, long before the Let Them movement, right? And she is a person that really resonates with me, and that's like the vibe that I'm hoping I'm giving, right? Is that I'm here for you. I'm a trusted partner, and I'm here to offer you, um, you know, inspiration and motivation to live your life and be you and be a better, bigger in the sense of like growing yourself, right? So there's that, and then there's the financial side of it, right? So I really want to be known as a person, to the go-to person for financial advice for women. And I don't just serve women, I will serve anyone, but you got to have a target market and somebody you're talking to.
Well, that's true. I mean, it's men and women have definitely different buying habits, different ideas of what's important to them versus what's important to the other sex and stuff like that. But your website, lindagriz.com, has got some great stuff. You've got upcoming workshops and some webinars and stuff that you're doing out there. You want to talk a little about that stuff?
I do, yeah. So everything's kind of a work in process still, but my MeMoney course is open. So anybody can join the MeMoney course. And it's a short course that it takes you through, like I said, figuring out what your MeMoney number is. It helps you understand your money personality and just really get you started, get in touch. And included with any of my courses is a community. So an online community where you can talk. And then I have other courses and upgrades and things like that that you can buy into, and one-on-one coaching, or if you just want to talk with me and I can help you figure out, whatever your personal growth, your success, your finances, how they all fit together, what you need, what steps you want to take, in all aspects of life. I'm happy to coach you along with that.
Well, it's a great thing having somebody to talk to that's not going to sit there and browbeat you. Oh, you can't do that. You know what I mean? I think we've seen enough of that out there, and
Yeah,
until you've walked a mile in that person's shoe, I don't think you have the right to judge somebody for decisions they've made along the way. Yeah, maybe some decisions could be better, but you know, nobody is there 24/7, 365 and what that person is going through with the decisions they've made or how they've been raised and taught to, right?
exactly. My approach is always with compassion, and my rules are no judgment and no lectures.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. But let's make it a learning moment out of these stuff and get you on the right path, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the best way for our audience to connect with you, to see what you're up to follow your journey and your clients' paths?
So I'm on almost all social medias at this point. So if you go to lindagriz.com, like you said, LINDAGRIZ.com, you can find the links to my socials, which I actually just added a couple more on. So I need to go update my links, but that's probably the best place to go. And then I also have a resources page on my website, which has like some freebies, some quizzes, the money personality quiz, and some downloads. There's 5 money personalities that I identified, by the way. So spender, saver, avoider, risk taker, and security seeker. So which one are you? Maybe you want to go find out.
There you go. That's be a good one. I will put a link for that definitely in there. But you've got a lot going on, which is phenomenal because I think that's not enough people are focused on things. You and with you attending FinCon, what's the big thing you're excited about in Portland here in the next couple of weeks?
So I'm new to this space, right? As a traditional financial planner, CFP, in doing planning, we're restricted by so much compliance. Like now I finally have a voice. So now I'm creating content and I'm putting out my voice and I'm super excited about that. So being new to that, I'm looking forward to learning all about how I'm supposed to be doing it because I'm doing it. I'm throwing it out there. I'm throwing it, but am I doing it right? I don't know. And how can I improve? So, and like I said, my goal is to have a really big impact. So the better I can present my message and refine it, the better I'll be able to have that impact.
There you go. Exactly. Well, we're looking forward to continued growth, stuff like that. And the stuff that you've got on your website's already amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, check it out. LindaGriz.com. We'll put the link in the description there for you. You can follow her, take the advantage of the freebies and the quizzes there to get started. And then if you need somebody to talk to who can help hold your hand and walk you through the process and give you some better decisions or help you with your MeMoney movement, uh, talk to Linda out there. Linda, thank you so much for coming on the show. We look forward to catching up with you in Portland here in a week or so.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it too.
Awesome. Good stuff. All right, guys and gals, that's going to take it, be up for this show, this episode. Definitely go out. Like I said, check out the website, follow Linda on all the social media out there, and don't be afraid to ask questions. We all come from different paths, and our history and what our family taught us is kind of ingrained in our system. But it's a different world. It's a different time. It's time to make the tweaks so that you can take advantage of the opportunities out here and not fall in the same bad advice from outdated materials and stuff like that, and realize that, hey, there are opportunities out there. So go out, take some action, buddy, and we'll see you at the top.